In the turn of the 20th century, 1912 to be exact, there was a mass murder caused by an axe. Today, we talk about the Villisca axe murders.
We here at Angry Me Production want to thank our sponsor, Mobile Notary Mindy. She's certified with the National Notary Association. She's also bonded and E&O insured. She offers a wide range of services including wills, powers of attorney, medical documents, healthcare proxies, living wills, certification of trust, assignment of personal property, HIPAA waivers, advanced healthcare directives, and 99 verification. You can find her on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Mobile Notary Mindy. You can also visit her webpage at texasmobilenotarymindy.com. That's TX, mobilenotarymindy.com. Thank you so much and enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen of all ages, boys and girls, thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of Angry Me Production. We appreciate you coming in and letting us be a part of your lives week in and week out. We hope to do our best to present you with something that your eardrums delight in. Whether you're looking at us on YouTube or Rumble, or listening to us on Spotify, Google, or Anchor, or any of the other podcast services that we are currently on or trying to get on, we thank you. And if you don't mind, at the end of every episode, stop by, leave us a comment, leave us a like. If it asks for 5 stars, we'll take 5 stars, even if you don't like us. 5 stars are what it's all about. With that being said, we hope you enjoy our attempt to make our advocation our vocation. Ladies and gentlemen, let the games begin.
Welcome, Angry Faithful. Yes, that's right. Today we're going to talk about the Villisca axe murders. Now, going through the date and everything, doesn't look like there was any kind of person that was actually caught on this, so bear with me on it. Now, you can visit the home in Villisca, Iowa. It's $20. And yes, I did the research myself. And it's just a little home, and they kept everything. If you look at their website, the Villisca Axe Murderer House, and you'll see that and what I'm showing you right now, if you're watching on YouTube or the other sites, yeah, they kept everything basically the same. Well, it's cleaned up and tidied up. You get to look around, and a lot of ghost hunters has gone through it because it's supposed to be a haunted house. So if you're ever in that area in Villisca, check it out. Tell them I sent you. That'd be kind of funny. I want to see if that actually happens. Now, the details in the early mornings, the victims consisted of Josiah B. and Sarah, 39. Josiah was 43, and other 4 children, Herman Montgomery, 11, Mary Catherine, 10, Arthur Boyd, 7, and Paul Vernon, 5. An influential family, the Moores were well known and well liked within the community. On June 9th, 1912, Mary Catherine Moore invited Ian May and Leanne Gertrude Stinger, 12, to spend the night in Moore's residence. That evening, the visiting girls and the Morris family attended the Presbyterian Church, where they participated in the Children's Day program, which Sarah was coordinated. After the program ended at 9:30 p.m., the Moores and the Stinglers sisters walked to the Morris house, arriving at 9:45 and 10 p.m. Now, the discovery of the crime at 7 a.m. the next day, June 10th, Mary Peckham, the Moores' neighbor, became concerned after she noticed that the family had not came out for their morning chores, was their regular schedule. Beckham knocked on the Moore's door. With nobody answering, she tried to open the door and discovered that it had been locked. Beckham let the Moore's chicken out and called Ross Moore, Josiah's brother. Like Peckham, Moore received no response when he knocked on the door and shouted. Ross unlocked the front door with his copy of the house key, while Peckham stood on the porch. Ross went into the parlor and opened the guest bedroom door, where he found Ian and Leanne Stingler's body on the bed. Moore immediately told Peckham to call Henry Hank Horton, uh, the primary peace officer who served shortly thereafter. Horton searched the house, revealed the entire Moore family and the two Stinger girls had been bludgeoned to death. Moore's body, an axe belonging to Josiah, was found in the guest room where the Stingler's sisters were found. Doctors concluded that murders had been taking place between midnight and 5 a.m. Two spent cigarettes in the attic suggested the killer or killers were waiting. According to official tour, there are no cigarettes found. According to the official tour, there were no cigarettes found in the attic until Moore's family and Stingler's guests were asleep. Oh. The killer or killers, they don't know how many people actually did do this, began in the master bedroom where Josiah and Sarah Moore were sleeping. Josiah received more blows from the axe than the other victims, his face being cut to such an extent that his eyes were missing. The ceiling of the room also had gouge marks from the murderer lifting the axe to murder him. I guess it was a small room. The killer or killers used the blade of the axe on Sarah, but using the blunt end on the rest of the victims. Herman, Mary Catherine, Arthur Paul were next bludgeoned in the head in the same manner as their parents. Afterwards, the murderers returned to the master bedroom to inflict more blows to the elderly Moors, the parents, knocking over a shoe that was filled with blood before moving downstairs to the guest bedroom, killing Aina, Stephanie Hawkins, and yes, I'm going to have to use that on this. Ina. I got it wrong the first one. I'm not going back. And Leanne. Simultaneously afterwards, a 4-pound slab of bacon had been taken out of the icebox and laid next to the axe. Investigators also found untouched food and bloody water during the search. After the search, people were let in to see if they could have committed the crime, completely contaminating the weapon. Investigators believe that all the victims, except for Leanne Stingler, had been asleep with the murder. Did they give the axe to everybody that was in the house? See, okay, after the search, people were let in to see if they could have committed murder with the weapon. Anyways, back then, geez. Back then, they didn't know much about investigation as much as we do nowadays. And it really is an eye opener of the times, I guess, when you're looking back on some of these investigations. Investigators believe that all the victims, except the Leanne Stilger, had been asleep with the murders. They thought that she was awakened and tried to fight back as she was found lying crosswise on the bed and with her defensive wound on her arms. Leanne's nightgown was pushed up to her waist, and she was wearing no undergarments, leading to law enforcement suspecting like the killers molested her. This was later proven false. Investigations over time, many possible suspects emerged, including Reverend George Kelly, Frank S. Jones, William Manfield, Loving Mitchell, Paul Mueller, and Henry Lee Moore, no relation. We'll get to Henry Lee Moore because he was actually, it was really weird. Kelly tried twice. Kelly was tried twice for the murders. The first trial ended in a hung jury, while the second ended in an acquittal. Other suspects in the investigation were also Stephanie Hawking, help me with this word because I am tongue-tied with it.
Exonerated.
Exonerated. Thank you. Jeez. You ain't come here for the intelligence, I'll tell you that. Now, the first suspect was Andrew Sawyer. Every transit and otherwise unaccountable for stranger was a suspect in the murders. Andrew Sawyer was one of those people. He was interrogated but not charged. He was obsessed with the murders and slept fully clothed as if he was ready to make a clean getaway, as he also slept with an ex by his bed. And by this is like stretched because the investigation that time frame was really, really weird. It's almost like a witch hunt until like nowadays, and we still have witch hunts every once in a while. Now, the Reverend George Kelly. Kelly was an English board traveling minister in town on the night of the murders. Kelly was described as particular, reported having suffered a mental breakdown as an adolescent. As an adult, he was accused of peeping in several times, asking young women and girls to pose nude for him. Well, things don't change with the freaking church, I guess. On June 8, 1912, he came to Villisca to teach the children day services, which the Moore family attended. June 9, 1912, he left town between 5 a.m. and 5:50 a.m. On June 10th, 1912, hours before the bodies were discovered, Reverend Kelly had confessed to the murders in court, but the jury did not believe his confessions. And what? In the weeks that followed, he displayed a fraction with the cause and wrote many letters to the police, investigators, and the family of the deceased. This aroused suspicion, and the private investigators wrote back to Reverend Kelly asking for details that the minister might know about the murders. Okay. Kelly replied with great detail, claiming that he heard sounds and possibly witnessed the murders. He has known mental illness, made authorities question whether he knew the details because of having committed the murders or was imagining his account. Oh, okay. I can understand that. In 1914, 2 years after the murders, Kelly was arrested for seeing obscene material through a mail or sending obscene material through the mail. He was sexually harassing a woman who applied for a job as his secretary. He was sent to St. Elizabeth Hospital, the National Mental Hospital in Washington, D.C. Investigators speculate again that Kelly could have been the murderer of the Moore family. 1917, Kelly was arrested for the Villisca. Sorry, I'm going to have to. Stephanie Hawkins again.
Villisca.
Villisca murders. Police obtained a confession from him. However, it followed many hours of the investigation, and Kelly was later recanted. After 2 separate trials, he was acquitted. Now the other one, Frank F. Jones. Fernando Jones was a Villisca resident and an Ohio state senator. Joshua Moore had worked with Frank Jones as his implement store for implement. It's an implement store.
Implement.
Okay, we're gonna have to find out what an implement store is.
Implement store.
Oh, okay. Implement store is basically a tractor supply company in Atwoods type thing. It's basically they deal with farm equipment and feed and whatnot. That I've never heard at an implement store. For many, he was Frank Jones at his implement store for many years before leaving to open his own store. Moore reportedly taking business away from Jones, including a very successful John Deere dealership. Moore was rumored to have had a sexual affair with Jones's daughter-in-law through no evidence supporting of this. I guess that's the reason why you could. There's a lot that can make a person snap, and I'm putting him top on the list. That would, if he actually found out about that stuff. But Kelly looks like a good person too. Now, William Mansfield. Another theory was Senator Jones's hire William Insane Blackie Mansfield. That does not okay. That doesn't bode well from him. An ex-convict and former U.S. soldier stationed at Fort Leavenworth to murder he had hired him to murder the Moore family 9 months before the Moore's murder. Similar case of axe murder occurred in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Two axe murder cases follow Ellsworth, Kansas, and Petrolia, Kansas. Cases were similarly enough to raise the possibility of having been committed by the same person. Other murders reported as possibility being linked to these crimes, including numerous unsolved axe murders along the South Pacific Railroad. Man, they must have had like a plethora of axe murders. The unsolved axemen of New Orleans killings, which I'm thinking about doing that one too, as well as several others such murders during that time frame. The murders of Colorado Springs were closely related in execution to those of the Moore's house. H.C. Wayne, his wife and children, and Mrs. A.J. Burham were found dead, murdered with an axe. Bed sheets were used to cover the windows and prevent passerbys from looking in. At the Moore's house, the murderer hung aprons and skirts to cover the windows, as in the murderers in the Villisca. The murderers in Colorado Springs wiped the blood off his axe, covered the heads of the victims with bed clothes. Mansfield was also the prime suspect of the burn detective agency in Kansas City. Detective James Newton Wilker's son, who suggested that he was a cocaine addict serial killer, which in that time frame is actually quite possible because you can buy cocaine at a drugstore. Things we learn nowadays. According to the Complimentary News Report, Wilkinson believed Mansfield responsible for the axe murders of his wife, infant son, father-in-law, and mother-in-law in Blue Island, Illinois, on July 5th, 1914, 2 years after the Villisca murders. The axe murders committed in Petrolia, Kansas, 4 days before Villisca murders and the murders of Janie Peterson and Janine Miller in Aurora, Illinois. According to the Western investigation, all the murders were committed in precisely the same manner, and indicating that the same man probably committed them all. Wilkerson stated that he could prove that Mansfield was present in each of the different crime scenes on the night of the murders. In each murder, the victim were hacked to death with an axe, and the mirrors in the homes were covered. A burning lamp with a chimney off was left in the front of the bed, and a basin in which the murderers washed was found in the kitchen. Basically, a basin is, if you don't know, that's basically a sink. It's basically a big bowl, and you pour water in, you wash yourself. Anyways, the murderer avoided leaving fingerprints by wearing gloves, in which Wilkerson believed that the strong evidence that the man was Mansfield, who knew his fingerprints were on file at the federal military prison in Leavenworth. Wilkerson managed to convince a grand jury to an open investigation in 1916, and Mansfield was arrested and brought to Montgomery County from Kansas City. Payroll records, however, provided an alibi that placed Mansfield in Illinois at the time of Villisca murders. He was released from a lack of evidence and later won a lawsuit he brought against Wilkerson and awarded $2,000 $225, which in today's money is $32,000. No, $15,000 today. Anyways, Wilkerson believed that the pressure from Jones resulted not only in Mansfield's release, but also in the subsequent arrest and trial of the Reverend Kelly. However, R.H. Thorpe, the restaurant owner, and Stephanie Hawkins,
Shenandoah,
Ohio, identified Manfield as a man he saw in the morning after the
Villisca,
Villisca murders boarding a train to Clarinda.
Clarinda,
This man said he walked from Villisca. If proved to be true, this testimony would disprove Mansfield's alibi. Furthermore, it was reported that Viola Tompkins in Marshalltown was on her way to testify that she had heard three men in the woods plotting the murder of the Morris family a short time before the killings. That's the reason why they have multiple killings. They don't know if it was one or multiple people. Now, the last one is Henry Lee Moore, was suspected as a serial killer who is not related to the slain Moore family, who was convicted of murdering his mother and grandmother several months after the murders in Villisca. I'm going to have, this is the simplest word.
Villisca,
Villisca. I'm going to have to be doing that, hopefully, and I learn it. I'm going to be seeing this name in my sleep. Villisca. His weapon of choice was being an axe before and after the murders in Villisca. I did it right. The very similar axe murders of his mother and grandmother were committed, and all of the cases showed striking similarities, leading to the strong suspicion that some or all the crimes were committed by an axe murdering serial killer, and was just like Blackie Mansfield, the axe murdering Henry Moore can also be considered a suspect in some of these slayings. Now, the last two is Samuel or Matt Moyer.
Moyer,
At the inquest, it was reported that Samuel Ronald Moyer, Josiah's brother-in-law, often threatened to kill Josiah Moore. However, upon further investigation, Moyer's advocate cleared him of the crime. It doesn't say if or how he was cleared. But Paul Mueller, in their 2017 book, The Man from the Train, Billy James and his daughter, Rachel McCarthy James, discussed the Villisca murders as part of a much larger series of murders, which they believe were all committed by a single serial killer. They were concluded the murderer was Paul Mueller, or Miller, an immigrant possibly from Germany who was suspected of unsuccessfully year-long manhunt as a sole suspect in the 1897 murders of a family in West Brookfield, Massachusetts, who had employed him as a farmhand. James started his research in an attempt to solve the murders, and with his daughter found archived newspaper stories detailed dozens of families murdered under the similar circumstance across the United States. The Jameses thus believed that Mueller was guilty of the. I almost had it right. I hate this. It's one part. Villisca murders as part of the killing spree that lasted over a decade, killing at least 59 people in 14 separate incidents, including Colorado Springs and petroleum crimes. James has identified common features to those crimes, many of which are also found in the Villisca scene. The killer selected families who lived nearby railroad tracks from which the killer was suspected to have traveled, hence the book title. Similarly, struck an ambush at about midnight while the victims were asleep, using the blunt side of the axe rather than the blade to strike his victims down. used an axe found in the victim's home. And yes, axes back then were very common because a lot of people cut their own, chop their own wood. Left the plain sight after the murders. Covered the victims with the blankets and prevented blood splatter, covered the windows from the inside, and locked the doors before departure. That's an. We'll get to that. The Mueller's suspected crimes, there is often, but not always, a sexual motive directly towards the percent girl, as a Leanne began partly disrobed. And a blurb and dust jacket in hardcover edition of The Man from the Train. Now that they also have a movie about this. But a lot of these people are going with the same evidence of these suspects on these crimes, and then they cover the windows and everything. Back then, a lot of people didn't have like curtains on their windows. Here's the thing on something like that. Most killers do cover up the windows and everything because they don't want anybody to know about their crimes. There are some people that want to know about their crimes. It's all depending on the murderer, really. And if you go about and just look at the same thing about one criminal doing one thing, and it's the same as this one. Yes, hopefully you can come up and you can see that that crime was actually taken place by the same person. They just travel a lot. Back then, travel was still hard. Yes, you could hop on a train, or you could basically go up and um hitch rides. A lot of people hitch rides. Cars were readily available as it is today. But it's all speculation on this one. And some of these things we'll just never know. But the Villisca, I still didn't. I can't even do that word. This sucks. Even after doing it like 15 times.
Villisca.
The Villisca Ask Murders have been done. Thank you all for watching and listening to me do this and fail horribly at it, even though I've been doing it for almost about 3 years. Hopefully one day I'll get good. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for all watching. Goodbye.